Okay, we're moving on, moving on. Um, if you didn't get a raffle ticket and want one, signal and they'll bring you one, is my understanding. We're going to be bringing out a few more seats. I think we're upwards of 50 people here already. That's great. That's great. And I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Ray Petty, and I'm doing the MC role today, which, since many of us know some of each other, but not all of each other, it's a kind of an introduction thing today. And we're going to have panels. What we'll do, and again, I'll mention that there are bio sketches in the program on the people that will be presenting today. And we'll just have the panel leaders introduce themselves and the remainder of their panels. And we're going to try to adhere to, I know there's a lot to happen this afternoon between now and 5. And Dot Neri is going to be the timekeeper in the front row, and she will be indicating 1 more minute, 2 more, whatever, okay. And we'll try to politely let people finish what they have to say. And then we'll hopefully have time for, at the end of these panels, if it runs short, we'll try to have an opportunity for questions from the audience, because I know some of this is going to be very interesting. Okay, so my clock says 2:15, and we're set to go with Lorraine being our first presenter. She's rolling in. We'll get her microphone checked. I'll just also say to the presenters and the panelists, some of these microphones may not be just as, shall we say, I'm pretty loud, but they may not pick up your voice if you don't get pretty close to it. So we'll try to make sure. If people are having trouble hearing, I've wound up becoming the audio engineer every time I'm at a place, because frequently the people at the back of the room cannot hear, and you're kind of going, turn up the mic, turn up the amplifier. So if that happens, please call our attention to it. So Lorraine has been around as an advocate for quite a while. She is the author of More the Same Than Different, What I Wish People Knew About Respecting and Including People with Disabilities, and was Miss Wheelchair Kansas in 2007, and has aged well given that. And a second edition of her book will be out next summer. So we're turning this over to Lorraine. Welcome. Looking forward to hear what you have to say.
Thanks, Ray. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 3rd Annual Disability Pride event in Lawrence. I am beyond excited that so many people are here. Disability Pride originated as a day of celebration following the passage of the ADA into law. I affectionately call the anniversary of the ADA Independence Day. The first official Disability Pride Month was in July 2015, marking the 25th anniversary of the ADA. And Disabilities Pride Month is celebrated annually every year in July. Why do we celebrate Disability Pride? I think we do so for 2 reasons. First is to dispel the myth that's long been held in society that people with disabilities are second-class citizens, that we're constantly in need of help or pity, that we're inspirational because we know how to make ourselves lunch, or that other people know what's best for us. The second reason I think it's crucial to celebrate Disability Pride is that people with disabilities get up every morning and do what they need to do in order to live their best lives possible, given the hand that they've been dealt. They do so in a society that wasn't built for people with disabilities, and in a body that doesn't always work the way we want it to, that takes grit, courage, determination, and creativity. And those things first need to be acknowledged and then celebrated. Because sometimes getting out of bed and doing what you need to do for the day can be a huge accomplishment. Please raise your hand if you've ever seen the Disability Pride flag before. I didn't know it existed until a couple of years ago. I got information about the Disability Pride flag from the ADA Anniversary website. Flags symbolize solidarity, pride, and acceptance. In 2019, a writer named Anne McGill, who has cerebral palsy, designed the original Disability Pride flag. Ms. McGill was motivated to create the original flag after a less than pride-filled experience at an ADA anniversary event. The original flag, which is right here, symbolized solidarity, pride. The original flag featured brightly colored zigzag stripes over a black background. The zigzag symbolized the barriers that people with disabilities face. However, this design caused symptoms in people with visually triggered disabilities when it was viewed on devices. I would imagine that means that this original flag design triggered seizures in some people. Following community suggestions, Ms. McGill refined the flag. She straightened the stripes, muted the colors, and reordered them in order to accommodate red-green color blindness. She showed how our community works together when we face conflicting access needs. The new flag design is a collaborative effort representing the community's unity when addressing challenges. Ms. McGill waived her copyright and put the flag in the public domain for everyone to use. The diagonal band of 6 colors cut across barriers, separating people with disabilities from society, representing light and creativity, cutting through darkness. Each of the 6 stripes holds a meaning. Red is for physical disabilities. Gold is for neurodiversity. White is for invisible disabilities and undiagnosed conditions. Blue is for emotional and psychiatric disabilities. Green is for sensory disabilities, including deafness, blindness, and other sensory disabilities. The faded black background represents the mourning and rage for victims of ableist violence and abuse. Thanks, Cooper. According to the CDC, people with disabilities are the largest minority group in the United States. 26% of people in society are said to be living with a significant disability. Given that, why don't we hear more about people with disabilities as a minority group? I think there are several reasons for that. First, people with disabilities are an incredibly segmented minority group. That means that I, as a wheelchair user, have vastly different needs than someone who is blind or someone with a learning disability. And I, as a wheelchair user, am much more likely to advocate for a ramp to get into a restaurant because that's what would give me access than I am to advocate for Braille menus for somebody with a visual impairment, even though I believe Braille menus are incredibly important. People with disabilities are the only minority group that's not generationally linked. That means when I was bullied as a kid for some aspect of my disability, I didn't go home to a family of people who understood completely what I was going through. And that aspect of disability can be incredibly lonely sometimes. People with disabilities are also the only minority group that anyone can enter at any time. When I was in grad school, we used to call people without disabilities tabs. That is, they were temporarily able-bodied. We also said that people with disabilities, that disability had an open enrollment policy. That means that anyone is a stroke or a slip on the ice away from their lives being changed forever. I firmly believe that everyone is going to be touched by disability at some point in their lifetime. And even if you're not touched directly, maybe a neighbor, coworker, or favorite aunt is going to be diagnosed with an illness or disability. And I think that everybody is going to know disability at some point, especially as they age. As an aside, I have a brother with a spinal cord injury. He was in a car wreck when he was 20 and paralyzed from the chest down. He's a wheelchair user now as well. Another reason I believe we don't hear a lot about people with disabilities as a minority group is that people with disabilities don't currently have a platform like a Black Lives Matter or a gay pride parade where people with disabilities and their advocates can come together and fight for the things that we need. In Lawrence, we're trying to change that. Your program invites you to a Disability Pride Facebook group, and that is for people with people with disabilities and the people who support them. In my opinion, nobody should talk about disability pride without also talking about disability rights. And every conversation about disability rights needs to include a woman named Judy Heumann. She is often referred to as the mother of the disability rights movement. She was born in 1947 and contracted polio when she was 18 months old. In 1969, she graduated from college with a teaching degree. But because she was a quadriplegic, the New York State Board of Education denied her a teaching license based on the assumption that she couldn't get kids out of a classroom in case of a fire. She sued the New York State Board of Education, and she won that case. And it was the first disability rights case ever brought to federal court. In 1970, she and some colleagues founded a group called Disabled in Action. They were a group of disability advocates that sought to bring about social change. They wanted a world that was more accessible for people with disabilities. They were incredibly vocal about fighting for their civil rights and advocating for things that would benefit people with disabilities. A few years later came the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. And this was significant because it was the first legal document to protect people with disabilities against discrimination. Section 504 of the Rehab Act stated that no entity or program that received federal funds could discriminate against people with disabilities. And that was huge because people with disabilities had been discriminated against in society for a long time and had no legal protection against it. The Rehab Act was the first time that the words disability and discrimination were linked. But in order to have equal opportunity, there needed to be accommodation. And in order to have accommodation, there needed to be regulations that were written and approved. As government officials began to look at 504, they realized that enforcing Section 504 was going to be really expensive because it applied to schools and hospitals and any place or program that received federal funds. And because the cost was going to be expensive, they delayed enforcing those regulations for about 4 years. In 1977, President Jimmy Carter appointed Joseph Califano, the Director of Health, Education, and Welfare, to form a task force to look at the regulations. And when people with disabilities found out that those regulations were probably going to be weakened, they demanded those regulations be enforced by April 5th. When that date came and went and the regulations weren't signed, they stormed health, education, and welfare buildings in 11 different cities. Most of those groups went home the next day. But in San Francisco, about 120 people with various disabilities, under the leadership of Judy Heumann, initiated a sit-in. And they vowed to stay until those regulations were enforced and signed into law without any changes. They stayed for 26 days. They did so without a lot of the medical equipment they required, and they did so with minimal caregiver support. But after 26 days and a whole lot of negative publicity, Joseph Califano signed the 504 regulations into law without any changes. That was the longest sit-in in a federal building in United States history. And it was It was at that point that people with disabilities began to show the country that people with disabilities were a political force to be reckoned with. The 504 sit-in was a significant accomplishment for people with disabilities, but something was missing in terms of access. Private businesses weren't required to do anything regarding the inclusion of people with disabilities. There needed to be a civil rights law that protected people with disabilities from discrimination. The first draft of the Americans with Disabilities Act was introduced into Congress in 1988. But once again, negotiations were stalled because there were so many people who believed that accommodating people with disabilities was just too expensive. Fast forward to March 12, 1990. People with disabilities crowded into the rotunda of the Capitol building. They were demanding the passage of the ADA. Outside, about 80 people in front of a whole lot of cameras flung themselves out of their wheelchairs and crawled up the steps of the Capitol. That event, there was 83 steps, and all of them made it to the top. Amen. And that event was called the Capitol Crawl. 104 people were arrested that day, but they got the attention of Congress, and they showed a whole lot of people that people with disabilities deserved access in society. The Americans with Disabilities Act was signed into law on July 26, 1990. As George H.W. Bush was signing it, he said, "Let the shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down." I remember July 26, 1990. I was at my parents' house, and I saw on the news that the Americans with Disabilities Act had been signed into law. I didn't know what it meant at the time, but because it was a few months later, as I was getting to my studies for my master's degree in rehabilitation counseling, I began to understand that kids with mobility issues no longer were going to have to be carried into venues if they wanted to go out and about with their families the way I had been as a kid. When I was a kid, there were times that my family didn't go places because the venue was just not accessible. Over time, I came to understand that some of the power of the Americans with Disabilities Act was in what it would do for future generations. And now that the ADA is 35 years old, we live in a society of people who've grown up knowing nothing but inclusion and accommodation for people with disabilities. And that's a good thing. But the ADA is not about equality. It's about fairness. ADA levels the playing field and gives people with disabilities the same opportunities as everyone else in society. In the months leading up to the ADA, many people displayed bumper stickers on the back of their wheelchairs. They said, the Americans with Disabilities Act, fighting to go where everyone else has gone before. Judy Heumann said, "As long as people expect me to be grateful for accessible restrooms, people with disabilities are never going to be seen as equals." There's a term for when people with disabilities aren't seen as equals. It's called ableism. My definition of ableism is when people without disabilities think they know better or are better than people with disabilities. I went to the dentist a few weeks ago, and I was with Aiden, one of my caregivers. Aiden's worked for me for a couple of summers, and he drives an SUV that's too high for me to get into without the use of a step stool. But because he's worked for me for a couple of summers, we have developed a really good system about how to get me in and out of his vehicle. We are in that process when a woman approached him. She put her hand on his shoulder and said, loud enough for me to hear, "You're amazing." Now, I'd be the first to tell anybody that Aiden is a really good guy, and we work well together. But in that moment, he was doing nothing more than he was hired to do as a caregiver. But she made him into a superhero. And by implying that he was a superhero, she was also implying that I was some sort of burden. That's a very subtle form of ableism. I can say with conviction that the biggest obstacle that I face every day as a woman with a disability is other people's attitudes and misconceptions. My friend Amy is also a wheelchair user. She says, the best way to reduce the obstacles in the lives of people with disabilities is simply not to be one. My experience at the dentist office is not the most recent incidence of ableism that I've experienced. So what can people do to empower those of us with disabilities? I have a couple of suggestions. First, when you see someone with a disability who you think might be struggling, please don't rush in to help. Instead, approach the person with a disability, ask them if they need assistance. And if they say yes, then ask them specifically what they want you to do. Follow their instructions exactly. But be okay if a person with a disability doesn't want any help. When I started my college career at Emporia State, I encountered an obstacle that I wasn't expecting. The campus university is compact, making it ideal for wheelchair users. But it also has several significant hills. At the top of one such incline was a building that housed most of my English classes. Since that was my major, I had to get to that building almost every day. I struggled to get to the top, grunting and groaning like a linebacker about to make a tackle. But because the hill was steep, I never quite made it under my own power. It was always necessary for me to ask for help to get where I was going. After a while, that hill became symbolic for me. I had it in my head that if I could climb the hill independently, I would be successful in my college career. I know that's not logical, but it was intensely personal for me nonetheless. One day I decided it was crunch time. I sat at the bottom of the hill, willing myself to get to the top and psyching myself up for the process. "You can do this on your own, Lorraine, go!" I started out. The hill between my dorm and Plum Hall felt like Mount Everest to me. I put my head down and my hands back, convinced that if I kept pushing forward, I would make progress. Keep pushing, don't stop. It became my mantra. Breathe, don't stop. Suddenly, about halfway up, a guy from behind me started pushing me up the hill without a word. Just like that, I was defeated, and I had nothing to do with that decision. I'd be the first to tell you that the guy was trying to do a good thing. His heart was in the right place. But he didn't ask me what I wanted, and took away what I was trying to accomplish. Therefore, he just wasn't helping. People with disabilities have made some incredible changes in this country, but I don't think the work's done yet. I think we're just getting started. What struck me as I was doing research for speaking today was that every major accomplishment I mentioned, the 504 sit-in, the Capitol Crawl, the Americans with Disabilities Act, they all happened and were successful because people with various disabilities work together for a common goal. So we need to get loud and stay loud, and we need to keep fighting until everyone in society understands and believes that disability is a difference and not a weakness. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lorraine. That was fabulous. And I want to also thank our interpreters. Now Vicki up after Claire was here, and they'll be with us the rest of the afternoon. If anybody needs to get closer for convenience, please do so. And now our timekeeper.
And nobody's doing anything.
Dot Neri. We've been at the same organization, but not at the same time, because I was with the the Research and Training Center on Independent Living in the early 80s, before she matriculated on campus and got her doctorate. Dot's been I've been with the Great Plains ADA Center as a technical assistance coordinator and the Kansas point person for a very long time. And Dot and I have probably interacted umpteen times about different issues. What do we do? What's the best advice to give this business? What's the next approach to solve a problem? So trust me, she knows Lawrence frontwards and backwards, and this will be an interesting presentation.
Thank you, Ray. I apologize for my voice. I don't usually sound like this, but I was going to come and talk anyway. So, Lorraine, that was a hard act to follow, so thank you for setting things up. I am charged with talking about changes in Lawrence that make it better for people with disabilities to live here. I want to emphasize that when things are accessible, it's better for everybody. So it's not just for people with disabilities, it's for everybody. I'm going to bear with me for a minute. I want to provide some context. Imagine you're on the TV show Survivor. Imagine that you face obstacles all the time. You don't know what's coming up. You don't know what you're going to deal with. I'm not even talking about getting voted off the island. But so the idea of having to negotiate environments that have traditionally not been set up for people with disabilities is an issue. These are the barriers that we deal with when we try to survive in our community. So our job is to eliminate barriers so everybody can participate. But let's talk about those barriers in general. If you're living with a vision-related disability, you don't know if you're going to be able to get information in an accessible format. Could be electronic, could be Braille, you don't know. You could be on a bus, and if the stop's not announced, you don't know to get off the bus. So little things like that. If you can't walk long distance, you may avoid going to a meeting that's important because you don't know if you can walk far enough, you don't know if there's benches. You might miss a candidate forum that allows you to be an informed voter. Imagine if you have a hearing limitation, you skip events if there's no loop or no interpreter. You may miss a school board meeting that's really important to your child's education. If you have an intellectual or developmental disability, there may not be information available in an understandable format. You may go to the doctor's office and get some written materials that mean absolutely nothing to you, and that will impact your health. So I think you get the idea. It may seem like small things are the keys to environments that promote independence and participation for thriving, not just surviving, for people with disabilities. And this isn't a small group. As Lorraine mentioned, the estimate is that 1 in 4 American adults have a disability. So it's a large group. So I want to add a personal note about how people with disabilities are too often perceived, because that's part of the environment that we interact in. Over the past few years, I've had some health issues, I've lost some functioning, and I've had to transfer from a manual, not to an electric, to a power chair. And a couple of months ago, I was at the med center to have a procedure. And when I got ready to go, the staff person said, "Oh, are you returning to a facility?" And I had never been asked that before. I was floored. I mean, nobody had ever assumed that I know of that I wasn't returning to my own home and my own community. And it made me think, I was disability aware before, but it made me think about how people judge others based on their perceptions of whether they're able to live independently with supports, whether they even are capable of making vital decisions about their own lives, and whether they deserve to be full community members. So it reminded me of the attitudinal barriers, in addition to the physical ones, that people with disabilities face every day. And by the way, the staff member responded when I told him I was going to my own home. He said, "Good for you." And my response was, "Yeah, believe me, I know." So again, about recent changes in Lawrence that have made it better for people with disabilities. First, there's an increasing number of audio loops in town. So for people using hearing aids, that facilitates communication. If I was still on campus, I would have a student look up all the loops and publicize that so everybody could know where they could go. Second, the county is installing an accessible kayak launch at Lone Star Lake. It will greatly expand opportunities for recreation. Wouldn't it be nice if the city Parks, Recreation and Culture Department sponsored some bus trips out there so people could get out there and try it out? Third, there's been an assessment of the Lawrence Loop for accessible sections that are flat, that people in wheelchairs or people with mobility limitations can get out and get some exercise. It would be great, and these are published on the Lawrence Parks and Rec page, but it would be nice if they could arrange a few trips out there for people to get out and try it. Not everybody has transportation to get out to Lone Star Lake. Fourth, also the Lawrence Loop, it would be nice if there were some benches, so if people want to go out, socialize, sit for a while, enjoy the nice weather when we have it in Lawrence, could get out there. The most exciting thing that I was going to mention was just put on hold a few days ago. The city applied for a large federal grant to improve accessibility of all sidewalks and curb ramps over a 20-year period. Yes, that's a long time, it is. But with 290 miles of sidewalk and 4,500 curb ramps in the city needing repair or replacement, it's a huge project. So the grant was originally submitted to the Federal Department of Transportation's Rebuilding America's Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity, or RAISE program. However, to de-emphasize equity, the grant program was renamed the Better Utilizing Investments to Leverage Development, or the BUILD program, that's the acronym now. The funds were denied. So the city will receive feedback from the feds to resubmit an already strong grant soon. But in the meantime, let's all keep our fingers crossed that the funding comes through, and let's keep using that beautiful word equity to increase its importance. Last, I need to say something about this library that has a home delivery program for people who are homebound. This has been very helpful to me when I've been confined due to surgeries. This is another accessible feature that makes a community more livable for disabled people. Of course, this is a paltry list, and I wish I had more to share. Remember, this is just a recent list. And I'm sure that the list is not comprehensive. I checked it with a few people. It's what we came up with. But it is progress. But we know we have a lot more work to do. And I'd like to share another anecdote. Back in 1990, when the A was still being considered, I traveled to Washington, D.C. to lobby for it with one of many groups. It was a heady time. Excitement was building, and we arrived to be briefed by a congressman and the father of the ADA, Justin Dart. That building was teeming with blind people with service dogs, deaf people, interpreters, people in wheelchairs, people with walkers, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We basically took over the building. We arrived at my New York representative's office, and I couldn't enter. The doorway was wide enough, but they had desks placed, so it was so narrow a person in a wheelchair couldn't get in. They had never had a person in a wheelchair visit that office. So they had to scurry around and move the furniture so I and other wheelchair users could enter. This is just one example how even lobbying for the ADA increased awareness. But now, when the ADA is mentioned, people recognize it as related to disability rights. They may not follow it. They may not implement it correctly. They may not even agree with it. But they understand that disabled people in the U.S. have rights. And that is something to protect and build on. I'm going to leave it to Carrie Sjogren and Ray Petty speaking next to discuss policy and political challenges that we all need to invest time and energy in, now and in the future. But I want to share some information I've gained over the years, and because we're at the library, I want to mention some really good books I've read. So unemployment among disabled people is a huge problem, and the public still has trouble understanding that people can be disabled and they can work. Mary Johnson's book titled Make Them Go Away, Clint Eastwood, Christopher Reeve, and the Case Against Disability Rights, though written in 2003, still provides a description of this problem that persists. Unfortunately, it persists in Congress, where the so-called big, beautiful budget bill specified that adults must have to work or be in school in order to receive Medicaid benefits, except, of course, adults with disabilities, because Congress doesn't think we can work. As long as so many of us are considered unable to work, we will not have the respect and financial security that everyone deserves. I want to give a shout out to the Self-Advocate Coalition of Kansas, or SAC, and Kathy Lobb for their work to pass what is rightfully known as Kathy's bill last year. This Kansas law gives people with intellectual and developmental disabilities preference in hiring, promotion, and retention for state government jobs, and it's a big win in making aware the fact that people with disabilities can work. You've heard of Judy Heumann. Lorraine talked about her. I hope everybody has watched the film Crip Camp, and her book, Being Human, an unrepentant memoir of a disability rights activist, is a gem. It's a terrific book with lots of good examples for advocates. But I especially want to cite her advice to use the media to bring attention to our issues. And in that context, thank Rex Ellerbrecht of Independence Inc. for coordinating media coverage today. I had the pleasure of meeting Judy several times and want to share her words about disability and accessible communities. Disability is a natural aspect of the human condition. As people live longer, as we fight more wars, as medical care continues to improve, more and more people who might have died in an earlier era will live, perhaps with a disability. We should accept that. We should plan for it. We should build our communities around it. Quote, unquote, these are wise words. Alice Wong is a disability activist writer, and founder and director of the Disability Visibility Project, to record oral histories and archive them at the Library of Congress. She is also a co-creator of a project called Crypt the Vote to encourage political participation of people with disabilities. She has compiled several books of essays by disabled writers, which are gems. This one is called Disability Visibility. She has some advice on the importance of disability community, which we're creating today. Community is political. Community is power. Community is resistance. We should all expect more. We all deserve more. She also said, disability is mutable and ever evolving. Disability is both apparent and non-apparent. Disability is sociopolitical, cultural, and biological. Being visible and claiming disability identity brings risks as much as it brings pride, unquote. But I think we're all up to those risks when we support each other. And now from my friend Martha Hodgsmith, one of the founding board members of the National Council on Disability, an attorney and longtime disability activist with the purple hair. She provided a warning about the seriousness of the current banning of diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Don't let anyone tell you that they don't hurt our movement, and please don't hesitate to resist this edict. As Martha writes, cruel behavior, such as language banning, is as inhumane as physical behavior. It says you are nothing. You deserve no words. She also said people who resist are the reason humanity changes from barbarism and tribalism to community. Community is the way humans don't represent inhumanity. Last, I quote one of my heroes in the disability rights movement, Justin Dart, who I previously mentioned as the father of the ADA. He advised, vote as if your life depended on it, because it does. So let's continue to celebrate, to connect, and to work together to make Lawrence a community where people with disabilities can live fully, participate, and thrive. Let's do it for ourselves, but even more, let's do it for the generations to come.
If you still have a voice, maybe a question. We have a couple of minutes, and then we'll segue into lived experience panel at 3 o'clock.
And if I don't know the answer to questions, I make them up, so.
Okay, yes, there's a microphone here. Anybody has a good question for Dot? She's answered them all.
Hey. Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
right. And Claire's back. Okay, the next panel will be assembling up here. Brad is not going to be able to be here, is my understanding, right? So this is Rick McNabb and Tamara Blackwell, Darby Bates. I met Tamara yesterday. We were at the state capitol for the governor's program to recognize the passage of the ADA, and she did a wonderful job. The second floor rotunda was largely filled up, so we have plenty of people here. And Alice is here also. Are you in? There you go. So We think we have microphones set up for each one. Let's check those out as we proceed.
Darby, if you want to.
Darby, can you want to come this way?
Yeah.
You want to come around this way? We can move around.
Is this on? Yes, it is.
Turn the mic on by pressing this button, and if you want to turn it off, you can press the button again. So when it's on, green, off, red. Nothing too fancy. Thank you. And so to turn the mics on, you'll press this button, and it'll be green when it's on, and red when it's off.
I'm like you, man. Gotta get comfy. All right, here we go. Nope.
Slide the button up.
What would the world be without technical difficulties?
On the same channel, can you
We're
grab?
switching out a
We're going to replace
microphone.
gooseneck 6 with gooseneck 2. Okay. We replace your mic with this mic. I think we share the same channel, so I think that's why
We're
we're
getting
getting
channel issues. Okay.
And is this?
As- So close. There we go. It's kind of cutting in and out, I think.
Well,
I'll be getting somewhere.
I mean, would you all
Okay.
feel comfortable sharing a mic if this mic is okay?
Yeah, we can
I'll
do
sit
that.
down near the front in case I need to do any rescue mic stuff.
Hopefully, there we go. Everybody, I'm Evan Dean from the KU Center on Disabilities. And Alice and I are going to be the moderators for the panel. I did want to, we had a last minute switch. Brad Linnenkamp couldn't be here today, but Philip Magruder from the Self-Advocacy Coalition of Kansas is going to stand in for him. So thanks, Philip.
Okay, as Evan said, I'm going to be the co-moderator for this session. My name is Alice Zhang, and I work at University of Kansas Medical Center. I still live in Lawrence because I love it so much. So it's wonderful that we have this great panel. So the first question we have is, please tell us a little bit about yourself and what disability pride means to you. So, Philip, do you want to get started?
Well, my name is Philip Magruder. I'm a black man with autism, age 33 years old. I'm born and raised in Kansas City, Kansas, to Marvin and Ann Magruder. I'm the youngest of 3 children. And what disability pride means to me, as I first mentioned, I was diagnosed with autism, and at first there was hardships with it, especially with accepting it. Part of it is accepting who you are and just not being afraid to just get on with life, and also just building confidence in yourself and not let anybody tell you any different. And things I gotta look at is just like, for example, last night, I was watching a movie last night, which was the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. Just to say that not only do I come from the land of the Chiefs and the Royals, but I come from the town that was ruled by Jesse James. So that's what you could say about me. But somebody's next.
I come from a town, I'm from Salina, Kansas, but I'm born there and then come here to Lawrence, Kansas. My name's Rick McNabb. Lorraine, where are you, Lorraine? Lorraine, I loved what you said. I came to my disability during the open enrollment period. I suffered a brain aneurysm 15 years ago, and I'm coming from an active guy where I coach basketball or fly fish or various crazy adventure stuff to coming to a wheelchair. My left side is, I have no sensation on my left side. But through this all, my hope is what disability pride means. My hope is to show others the possibility of still trying to do things and still trying to be out there. One of the things I love to say is that keep trying to do the things that you love. It's going to look different, but getting over how it looks different, that's where the fun and the challenge comes. And so I've been there, been volunteering at the hospital for the last 12 years on the 4th floor, where it's a rehab unit, and where I just meet and hang out with others that have had strokes or had the same type of thing, and just hang out with them and with their families. And it's just been a rewarding thing for me, the friends I've made through the years. So my name's Rick McNabb. Thanks for.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Good evening. My name is, well, I guess it's not evening. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tamara Blackwell. You can call me Tam because usually Tamara or Tamara comes out, but it's Tamara, but I go by Tam. I am from Kansas City, Missouri. How about those Chiefs? So that's where I'm originally from, but I now live in Bel Air, Kansas. Moved to Wichita when I was 11, but I am married and raised my kids in Bel Air, Kansas. And I am former Miss Wheelchair Kansas 2024, and I am the current Miss Wheelchair America 2025. Thank you. Thank you. Actually, the first Kansas contestant title holder to win the title out of like 50 plus years. And so I am very proud to represent the state of Kansas in this great nation of America. I was born visually impaired. I have no center vision. There's a name for it that I cannot pronounce. So, but all I know is to live with it because I've done so my whole 41 years of life. But at the age of 27, after 10 years, a decade of back and forth with the doctors, I was diagnosed with a condition called limb-girdle muscular dystrophy. It is a progressive disorder that attacks the muscles of the body. They say the shoulders and the hips, but to me, it touches everything. And what does it mean to have disability pride? It is for me to just be my authentic self, to be okay with needing to have larger print or asking for help when I go to a restaurant if I can't see the menu. Usually my husband orders for me anyway and I eat the same thing, but I'm not afraid to say, hey, I cannot see this. Being in a position to where if I go into a building and there needs to be more access made, that I am not afraid to say that. So I am proud to be who I am in the body that God has given me, and that's what disability pride means to me.
Hello. My name is Darby Bates. I'm 15. Sorry. ILD syndrome. And disability pride to me means having confidence in yourself and others. Yeah.
Good job.
That's about it.
Well, great. Well, thank you, panelists, for introducing yourself. The second question, and Darby, we'll go ahead and start with you for this one. So it's a two-part question. First, what impact has the Americans with Disabilities Act had on your life? And what would be different about your life if we did not have the Americans with Disabilities Act?
All right. Perfect. I did a lot of research about this. And it requires all buildings to have an accessible entrance, which is amazing. But a lot of businesses do not follow that rule. And it's pretty helpful to have a button that opens the door for you, because without that, I would need to have a caregiver by my side at all times. And I don't want that. And when I turned 16, I wanted to get a job. And the ADA offers me the same opportunities as people without the disability. And that's very helpful.
Oh, same question? Can you repeat it, please?
Sure. What impact has the ADA had on your life? And what would be different about your life if we did not have the ADA?
Well, I'm going to say the impact is just accessibility. Growing up, because I'm visually impaired, that meant that I was entitled to extra testing time or large print books or large print materials, and so that allowed me to participate in school and excel in school despite the challenges that I had. And as well as now being a full-time wheelchair user, it just means inclusion, that I can enjoy a Chiefs game, because, going to a game or going to a rodeo. I took my husband to a rodeo in Interest Bank Arena. It was extremely accessible. Those things are very important, because I feel like it's vital for those of us who are in the community to be outside in the community so that they can see us and they won't forget about us and know that we exist. If we did not have the ADA in place, it would mean that we would be further secluded from society, not included. We already struggle to be seen and heard, but without the ADA, we would be completely void of, people knowing that we exist, because we wouldn't be able to get out.
There we go. The question is the impact of the ADA in my life and how it has made the ADA made it different. One of the things I forget that I hope that our friends see that not have a disability, but there's so many things that I didn't see before my disability that I see now. And so things as simple as I live in a handicap accessible home with the the Lawrence Housing Authority, which I would have never been able to have accessibility to. And so, so simple things like a lower shelf, handrails in the bathroom, accessible walk-in shower, and simple things that as able-bodied people that we just assume that it's just part of life. But for us, those little bitty things of going to a public restroom and there being a handrail on the right side or left side in order for us to just go to the bathroom safely. It's little things like that that we hope, my hope is with with today, is that we help folks become more aware. And that what you said is that too, that being a part of society, that we're not put off from society, the more accessibility that we have to this, the more we're able to be out and be able to be seen, and us be able to be seen functioning with everybody else and sharing their time and them sharing ours. And so anyway, that's kind of a little thing. One other little thing too that I assume that we don't think about. My wife pointed out to me, is guys, one of the easy little things that we can vote, and that voting's accessible. Okay, there's an over-under on when I would start to cry today. I just blew it. Okay, sorry. So again, those are all the little things that it allows us to do the things we're able to do. And because of the ADA, that is the impact that it has on all of our lives. But the cool thing is that we forget is that it has an impact on you guys' lives that are not disabled, because it allows us to be with you in society as well and be able for us to function with you as well. So, thanks.
What impact has the ADA had on my life? Well, I wanted to mention that I also work with an amazing organization called the Self-Advocate Coalition of Kansas. I started working there June of 2020, right after I was working with the Kansas City Chiefs as a ticket taker and a usher, and also had connections with the front office, where I got, and yes, I have 2 Super Bowl rings to my name. So that's the, right, well,
Wow.
right, that's good, but without the ADA law that was signed in 1990, I wouldn't have had the opportunity. As a matter of fact, before there was the ADA of 1990 signed, there was the Civil Rights Act of 1965. That was basically the same situation that most of our folks who also look just like me had to fight for. So it's basically another mention about me. I also love history because my mom is a history teacher who taught 20 plus years in the Kansas City, Kansas, and Kansas City, Missouri school districts. And also she's a former Black Panther during that time period too, to understand America. And just to understand those things that she came from and understand those laws. When she found out that that I had autism, she didn't understand it, but I believe her looking at the ADA law and like what those things I was privy to, or what I could have accessibility to, it meant a lot. And if I never had that opportunity, it starts at home with your parents, understanding that, and the people around you in your community who support you. And what would be different about my life if we didn't have the ADA? I would ask the same question of what if we didn't have the Civil Rights Act of 1965? That should be the answer to that too, and how it affects everybody. Because there's also Black folks that look just like me who also have cerebral palsy, who has different types of disabilities, who live in disenfranchised socioeconomic areas that, for example, where I came from in Kansas City, Kansas, I didn't know about SAC. I didn't know about KUCD. I didn't even know about the ADA Act of 1990. They didn't teach us that in high school. But when I look back at my high school graduating class and see that most of them where I come from are not, dead or in jail or just barely surviving, it's just a reflection to say that I thank God for the people I had in my life that guided me to where I am now today, and also that ADA law, because without that, I wouldn't be able to use my voice and to use my privilege as a Black man with autism who is also a direct support worker for a mentor of mine who should be at this panel right here, and his name is Brad Lennekamp, who was there on that very day as he told me during my times of helping him out and me gaining as much knowledge to become a self-advocate from him. He was there in that room when George H.W. Bush signed that bill that we have today, to now 35 years later, where Brad's still going through his stuff, and also how it also impacts my life and the people I work with at SAC. It just means a lot, and it just gives me more motivation to keep using my voice and not let anybody limit me or any of our voices.
Thanks for the wonderful sharing. Another question is, what's one thing you wish people understood about disability? What actions can people take to fight ableism? We can start maybe from that end.
Sure.
So one thing that I think people struggle with when they see people who have a disability is will they see me in a wheelchair and they think that I'm helpless. And I don't really need help that much. But they usually just jump to the conclusion I need help with everything. But I don't need that much help. And that's a pretty big problem in today's society. Yeah. And maybe just ask for if you need help before you just help them out.
Okay, wonderful. So one thing I wish that people would understand about disabilities, or at least for me, I can speak for myself, that I am super because I'm awesome, because I'm me, but I am not a superhero. I am not, it's not amazing that I get myself dressed. I just get myself dressed. It's not amazing that I can, put groceries away. Sometimes the pity, it's like, I don't need your pity. You can empathize with me, but I don't need your sympathy. I live life like everyone else. It just looks a little different. But we all have our things, regardless if it's visible, because before my disability with my visual impairment was probably more invisible. So looking at me, you would not know that I was disabled. You would not know that I would be in that category. And I've had doctors say, oh my gosh, you don't look sick. So what is sick supposed to look like? What is this disability or being disabled supposed to look like? We're all human, but we're all different, but we all carry our things. And so I just wish that everyone would know, or people would look at us as the same. When you stop pitying me and realize that I'm just a regular human being. I'm awesome because I'm awesome. You're awesome because you're awesome. Living doesn't make me awesome, but speaking up and maybe sharing and helping in the way that I do to advocate may make me awesome in some kind of ways. But even in that, I feel like that's just my reasonable service. That's what I'm supposed to do as a human because I love my fellow brother and sister, right? So I just feel like that we need to remove the stigma of pitying someone who's different because we're all different, right? And the second half of the question is, what actions can people take to fight ableism? Is just to share and speak up. The people who are able-bodied are to be perceived able-bodied because we really don't know. I can look at someone and think that they're not disabled, but just to have a commonality of just loving one another and wanting to see the next person succeed in whatever shape or way that you can. And that's just starting off with just being kind to one another, just being observant, just being a good human. That's all that that's the actions that's gonna take to fight it. Just being kind to one another, so.
All right. Question is, what's one thing I wish people understood about disability? One of the things I said that I mentioned earlier is that please, 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 guys, if I can encourage you to do one thing, keep doing those things that you love, whether it's cooking, whether it's, guys, I'm fly fishing. I know that sounds ridiculous, but and I could fall down, and I do. But the other part of that is that any of these things that we try to do, we can't do them alone anymore. So in order for those things to look like they used to, you need help. I still can't figure out how to tie a fly onto a fly line. Maybe someday. But I need help taking that fish off the line. But again, guys, that's one of the things is that we want to help. We want to do these things that we loved. And they don't look like it does anymore. But one of the things I always say that's really kind of cool is that when we do it together, though, it's so much sweeter. Right, so okay, which is really cool. All right, one of the other things is to, I would say in our disability, is to maintain the idea of possibility. Did you think you'd be queen?
No.
Yeah, I mean, you know, guys, one of the crazy things that I've done is that I have, there's this little challenge that it's called the Everest Challenge. And so I spend a lot of time at the hospital. I do my PT there, I volunteer there, but they also have 96 stairs from the bottom to the top floor. And it's 29,000 steps that I'll do in 100 days starting August 29th. And I'll climb up the stairs and take the elevator down. So I kind of cheat a little bit. But I've got other people to follow me in doing this. I can climb stairs easier than I can walk, which sounds kind of goofy. But I've been an athlete all my life, and so climbing stairs has just been part of the whole thing. But again, it's the idea of possibilities. It's the idea of having goals. It's the idea of doing goals with somebody else. I have this group of guys, and I'll leave you with this. One of the little things that happens when you're not able to do things quite like you used to is that you come up with these ideas. So now, though, if I ask you to join me, and I'm doing it, it's really hard for him to say no. It just is. And I had these guys join me climbing Mount Everest, doing it on their own. And we call it, are you ready for this? Don't laugh too loud, but these guys are called my stepbrothers.
Right.
Such a joy. Such a joy of having those coming close next to you. But you can ask them. And for guys, and that's one of the things that you said too, is that one of the things that our PTs tell us, particularly those who came through open enrollment, is that do it yourself. Do this yourself. Learn to do this yourself. And one time I had a friend of mine kind of corrected me and goes, you know, I know you've been told to do it yourself, but when this person comes up behind you and goes, hey, can I give you a push? Can I give you a push over here? And I'm always like, oh no, I've got it. He's like, stop. Go ahead and take the help. Take your pride down just a little bit and accept giving to them that they want to give to you. And me learning to ask for help has been such a pride thing that I've just learned to ask for help, and it's okay. So anyway, I'll leave with that. So again, look at possibilities, look through the eye of possibilities, bring others along with you. There's so much joy in that for them and for yourself. So thanks.
So the one thing that I wish people would understand about disability is every disability is not the same. We're all different. If you have a certain disability, like my example, I have autism. I can't say that I have Asperger's syndrome because some people will not understand what that is, and I can't say I have a certain form of it. I just have it. It's just part of who I am. Just like a lot of us who have Down syndrome or cerebral palsy. I mean, it's just part of who we are, and that's what people need to understand. That's why I love working at the Self-Advocate Coalition in Kansas, is because that is the greatest example. Like what I'm talking about is that we all come together despite how different we are. We still come together. As I always say, teamwork makes the dream work. And when we come together as a team, especially collide with KUCD, Ryan, you know what I mean, man. When we all come together, we make a great team and make what we want to see come to life, especially with these events like whether it's the SAC conference, whether it's an event that KUCD is doing, like the Ride Ahead video. This is the example, like what I want to talk about, which also I wanted to add on to fighting ableism. My other mentor at SAC, pretty much I would have to say my number one mentor is Stephanie Sanford. And Stephanie just brought me to the side one day and just said, like, yes, Philip, you have autism, but there's one thing about yourself you probably did not realize. You have certain privileges that some of your fellow self-advocate trainers don't have. Not only do you have, not because your ability to walk and do stuff physically, but you also have the powerful voice to use to advocate for them, is to speak up for their rights, to speak up for your own rights. And that's why I say, for example, when somebody says, like to me, oh, Philip, you don't come out like you're autistic to me, what is that supposed to mean?
Right.
Like, I used to hate that growing up from people, and it's like, that really just them giving a dead giveaway that they're ignorant or just don't want to know anything, but spend enough time watching too many ridiculous stuff on TV, because that's what we're living in today's pop culture. But at the same time, what I mean by what actions can we take to fight it, just hold those folks accountable. You know, have them take, as my father put in my mind, responsibility. Son, you got to be responsible for your actions, especially whether they're good or they're bad. Take responsibility for them, especially those folks who can help out our folks within the community. And also wanted to add this other layer to it too. I think that for us to understand disability, we must sit down and stop assuming and sit down and come to the table, listen to those folks. As a matter of fact, here's a project I always wanted people to do, able-bodied folks to do. Try to spend at least one day in a wheelchair. Don't break the rules by getting out of it. I want those folks to understand what it's like for folks within our community and why they have to go through it every day, just like when Brad has to go through it every day. Like, he is at the point where he has to use the bathroom almost every single day of his life. But he has to learn to adjust, just like when that happens to me, I've got to learn to adjust my body in those things and those examples. So that's the best way I could just put it. We just work with each other, hold each other accountable, especially if somebody is speaking ignorantly and being very ableist. And also use, like me, I have to use my privilege to use my voice and to bring this up to everybody here. Hopefully you guys will understand and listen and try to apply to your life.
Thank you, panelists. We have one more question prepared, and then we should have a little bit of time to open it up for questions. So we'll give everybody some time to start thinking about questions. But so the last question, and Philip, we can start with you for this one. What are the key areas where the disability community needs advocacy right now? And the second part of that is, what strategies are helpful for you when you are advocating?
So what are the key areas where the disability community needs advocacy right now? All right. As simple as hearing our voices out, especially those who are scared about what's going on in today's climate. I'm not going to get into any political stuff, and as I promise as well too, but just understand what everybody is going through, and if anybody feels that they have a right to speak up on these things, especially in the name of defending the disability rights community, I would advocate for everybody to do that, because there comes a time you can just sit around and try to relax. And I'm talking about for me personally, because everybody knows me that I'm very passionate and I'm very outspoken. It goes down my family tree. But I'm also learning as I'm growing older, and as I'm considered as one of the leaders of SAC, I have to lead by example, like being a team captain. Like, I can't go out there with the captain label and then go to a party and act a fool. That makes our team look bad, for example. So I'm just saying is to understand where everybody's coming from, because we all got our struggles right now. Like folks, for example, we probably need more help with folks who are DSW workers out there. We need more advocates to speak up about what's going on today. There are folks out there who need help with housing, just those same common things that affected us years ago that we signed into the ADA law. I think those things are at stake right now, are being challenged right now. And I feel like that's where we need to take advantage of and pay attention to. And, not just talk about it on Facebook, because talking about it on Facebook is not going to stop it. Like I mentioned, my family, my mom is a Black Panther. She actually had to get her hands dirty, because sometimes you have to do those things in order to see actual change whether we like it or not. I'm not advocating violence or none of that stuff, but just when it comes to that moment, it'll be like a gut feeling thing. But what strategies are helpful for me when I'm advocating? Listening to the experts that came before me who advocated before I came, look at the history of this movement. Also, do your research on the certain topics that you're talking about. For example, one of my biggest topics for the disability rights community is supported decision making. And because with supported decision making, folks within our communities have the right to advocate for themselves without having their parents or a guardian trying to make decisions for them, especially if it's not the decision that they want. Those things is what I'm advocating for. And I just hope that everybody just considers like helping your fellow man out, especially if you're working within our community. Just take that time. And also, like, don't look at us like if you ever watched Ride Ahead and there was a part where the woman was patting Sam Habit on his head like he was a child and he's a 20-year-old man. I love when he just raged out because that's normally how I would too if somebody treated me like that. I'm not a child. Yes, I have a disability, but I'm also trying to be a grown adult. Please don't do that to me. So other than that, that's a way that I can do that. Just stand up for yourself and stand up for what you believe in. And once again, don't let nobody tell you what you can't do if you put your mind to it. And I learned that the hard way coming from KCK.
There we go. All right. So the question is, what are the key areas of disability needs of advocacy right now? One of the simplest things is what we're doing today, which is perfect, right? And so I think the press is here, and that's just getting this in front of other people is perfect. So I have one little thing. We're going to do a little exercise here together. And I'm going to challenge you, and it's partly with your idea as well, that you can't go jump in a wheelchair today, but here's something that you can do. So I challenge this to a friend of mine. So show me your dominant hand, whatever it is. Okay, here's what I want you to do. It can be today, it can be tomorrow. With your dominant hand, I want you today for 1 hour, just 1 hour, do everything with your dominant hand. You cannot use your left hand at all. Guys, this is what I do every day. Okay, and it'll blow you away, but all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, you'll find. So here's my other hand. It's my mouth. Guys, I would show you, but you'd die laughing. Watch it, but guys, I tie my own shoes, but I use my mouth. But guys, just go out there, try that. See what that's like, and you'll be like, oh, I kind of get it. I get a little picture of what this means. The other part I would say, come walk alongside us, whether that's at Lawrence Memorial, volunteering, come to the senior center, help there. Go help at your place of worship, your church. There's so many great places. Just come alongside. Just walk next to us. We don't need a pat on the head.
Great.
I'll take one every once in a while. I'll take one on the back. But just come walk alongside us. And that'd be the coolest thing. I want to leave you with one little cool thing. So one of the neat kind of full circle things. So one of the guys that we have not really talked about today is Senator Bob Dole from Kansas. Senator Dole was injured he's from Russell, Kansas. He was injured in World War II. And I'm sorry, I call him Uncle Bob because I work for Senator Dole. I worked for the senator in D.C. When he was on the Senate Finance Committee, sat right behind him every day. And then when he ran for president, I worked for him in Iowa. And it was when I was body able. But here's what I saw. Senator Dole, if you'd ever go meet him, he'd always hold his pen in his right hand because that way you couldn't shake my right hand. But he just kept going. His energy, you didn't know Senator Dole couldn't use his right hand. He wouldn't tell you. And he just kept going. And that was such a great example and his push for the ADA in 1990. I'm going to read you his quote that this came from during the passing of the legislation. The message to America by passing this bill is that inequality and prejudice will no longer be tolerated. We need this legislation not only because it is just and fair for the people with disabilities, but because all of us can benefit from the talents and abilities of all Americans. That's it. Isn't that cool? Thanks, Uncle Bob, right?
Wonderful. So I feel, let me make sure I'm getting this right. What are the key areas for disability community? So what we need is more representation. We have a saying in the community, nothing about us without us. There are a lot of decisions that are being made on our behalf without individuals that are in the community at the table. I often say for myself, I don't need you to make a seat at the table for me because I come with my own seat. I just need you to scoot over a little bit so I can pull in, okay? And some points I bring the table. I am the table. I believe that we need to be at those tables. I was recently in DC and met with our legislators. I met with Congressman Schmidt and Roger Marshall and all of those guys, trying to bend their ear about the big, beautiful bill and the Medicaid cuts and all of those things. And I just find that there are not individuals like us in those rooms. So what we need to do is get in those rooms. You don't have to go to Washington to be in those rooms. You need to get in your local government. And that means that you don't have to be a politician, but go to the council meetings. They have those meetings. Go to those board meetings, educational school board meetings. Vote locally. A lot of times we get the misconception that it's the top, but it's really from the bottom up what makes the difference. If we do not go and get ourselves and wiggle in and sit at those tables, then they're going to continue to make decisions, and they don't have the lived experience. They don't live our lives. They are not in our bodies. We are all different, but how can a completely able body, it's even with the doctors, you know, they're making decisions, and I had to tell one of them when I went through panel discussions for to become Miss Wheelchair America, and one of them was a doctor. What would you like for us to know? Well, I'm the expert in me, and I appreciate your degree, but I told them for 10 years there was something going on in my body, and I got told by a neurologist, I think it's all in your head. But I had to continue to advocate for myself, and we have to do that. It's wonderful for us to come together in the room, but we need to get out and get in their rooms. We need to get out and make some noise. Right now, we're going a little bit backwards. We're not going to get political, but you guys know what I'm talking about. There are some things that are going down the pipeline that will hinder us from progressing and going forward. We have to become vocal about those things. We cannot just sit back and just say, well, they have the ability because they're in office, or they're the Republican leader, the Democratic leader, they're da-da-da-da. It doesn't matter. We are the ones that put them in position. We're the ones that pay their salaries. When they freeze our government, they still get their salaries. We need to kind of go back to the drawing board, and I don't really think I'm gonna fling myself on some steps, but who knows? I told myself I wasn't gonna ski down a mountain when I went to South Dakota, and I did it. So if I have to, I will do it. We have to have that mindset. If we don't, then they're going to continue to make those decisions for us. And what kind of life is that when we're going to go backwards and then you're going to say, well, you guys don't need ramps and you guys don't need the push buttons. And how is a ramp hurting an able-bodied person? It benefits the mother with the stroller or the person who just had hip replacement surgery. Maybe they're temporarily having to use a cane. It benefits everyone. And so we have to get busy doing the work that needs to be done. Thank you. And one strategy that I used even before I became Miss Wheelchair, I just felt a pressing in my spirit from God that I needed to share my life. When I became disabled, I was ashamed to a degree because I didn't want to be, like, I didn't want to look like I needed help or look like I'm already different enough. I'm a girl in America who's black. So, I mean, I fit and check a lot of boxes, okay? I didn't want to check another box. And there was often times where I would take pictures, and when I was up on a cane, I would move that cane out of the way, because nobody needed to see that part of me. Nobody needed to see that I was in a walker. But when the wheelchair came, I could not hide the wheelchair. It was that or keep falling on your head, you know, giving yourself concussions, and that's not cute. So I needed to be in the chair, and I had to embrace that part of me, and that is the thing that we have to do. We need to embrace it, and then I started to share it. I share it on social media. I share how I transfer. A lot of times, to break the stigma, we have to share so that they can see that, yeah, I mean, it's not cute how you tie your shoes, but you can do it, you know? You're not just a person that's dependent that can't live your life, and a lot of times that is the stereotypical thought process that comes, is that we're just some burdens, and it's not the case. My husband's great, but he's not Superman for helping me in and out of the car. He took the vow, you know, is what I often say, and he stuck with me. So that's how it goes. So the strategy that I use, and I ask you guys to use, is just to live your life. Go out, go fly fishing, go out and go to work for the Chiefs and get a Super Bowl ring. I am so jealous. Do those things, like you said. And I think that we will become better for it all. So that's it.
So I've been doing a research study at the NIH for the past 3 years. And those grants, the funding grants, have been canceled or frozen. And that happened this year. You can connect the dots. But we're gonna go tomorrow, actually. Yeah. That's just been really hard for me to have the research been canceled. So if you have any money to donate, I put it into the MDA or the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. The CHOP. Yeah.
Panelists, thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time to share your experiences and your perspectives. We really appreciate it. We are running a little low on time, so hopefully everybody thought of the questions that you want to ask. But if you can, I think we'll have some social time as we go along, and so feel free. I think everybody's going to be around, so if you have questions and want to come up and talk with people more, there'll be time to do that. So thank you.
If I could, one thing that Philip brought up, and I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but during the period after the Rehab Act was passed, and I don't know if Rick, if you were there during as early as '73, were you around at that time? Okay. Well, Rick was I didn't know him in Dole's office, but between '73 and '78, the Rehabilitation Act was sitting there without guidance on 504, which was the language that said people with disabilities aren't going to get discriminated against. Well, what does that mean? You just don't put up a sign and say, we're not discriminating against you. And so, well, what about there's no ramp in front of your building? Those kind of things. Anyway, the story about the sit-in in health, education, and welfare in San Francisco for almost a month, when you mentioned Black Panthers, they fed those people every day.
Hey, can I mention this, Ray? That was actually from Huey P. Newton's actual Black Panther organization from Oakland.
Yes.
While they were trying to label Huey as a criminal and all this other stuff, but you sure already know why.
No. And there's I don't remember the name of it, but we'll try to figure this out and get it out to everybody. But there was a really good story about this, a historical recollection of this, and people with disabilities do appreciate that, and they do understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. I also want to mention I did see that part in Crip Camp, and that was the first thing that Stephanie gave me when I first started working at SAC. It was like a homework assignment was watch Crip Camp, and it changed my life almost forever especially when I saw that scene. And I showed my mom, and my mom was very excited and happy to see that. And I remember it was one of their members that Judy Human and them were associated with, and I think one of them asked him, "Oh, why are you helping us out? They label you in the media as these devilish organization that's talking about kill white people and the police and other stuff." No, first of all, my guy, we are for police protection in the black community against police corruption and racist police who want to come into our areas and abuse us and abuse their authority. And what you guys are doing is the same thing that we're fighting for. We're basically, our fight is your fight. And the food that they gave them was from the Free Breakfast Children's Program.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So, Carrie is up next. 350. We got a couple of, well, you got 15 seconds. This is running along pretty carefully here. I'm not sure we won't be able to shorten it up a bit, but we'll see.
Oh, I have to be green. That would help. It should be a very easy cue, but it's quite an act to follow, the panel that we just had, hearing from Philip and Rick and Tam and Darby about their experiences. It's really that lived experience and expertise that's what really shapes so much of what we're talking about today. So it's a privilege to be here. My name is Carrie Sjogren. My pronouns are she and her. Just for a visual description, I'm a white woman with shoulder-length curly brown hair. I am wearing a blue shirt while I'm sitting up here at the front of the room. And really, I just want to elevate many of the points that were already raised today. I feel like we've already heard so many powerful messages of disability pride, of celebrating the ADA, being able to be here together today on its passage. But before I try to elevate some of them, as well as really talking about why policy matters and building on some of the things that have been shared, I do want to share just a little bit about myself. I direct the Kansas University Center on Disabilities. We're one of the organizations that, along with many others in this room, was very proud to partner to be able to support and advance this event happening today. KUCD is a disability research center at KU, and our mission is really to strengthen communities so that everyone can learn, work, feel included, and thrive. We strive to do this by building partnerships with people with disabilities, their families, educators, other support providers, and the community. We also are the University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities for the state of Kansas. For those of you that don't know, there's actually a UCED, as we call it, in every state and territory in the US. And our goal is to also advance disability rights, laws, including the Developmental Disabilities Act, as well as the ADA and others, by partnering with the disability community and really trying to do research that's helping us shape policies that are rooted in the needs, the values, and what the disability community prioritizes. So we really seek to build partnerships with all people to collectively address and build disability rights, disability pride, but also to counter threats, especially threats that we're currently experiencing today in our community. I also do want to note that I'm deliberately saying our community. We all have multiple identities. A primary identity for me is as a disability researcher and the director of KUCD. This is how most people know me, and also how I'm typically perceived, because I've been privileged to be able to devote my career to developing solutions to advance self-determination with the disability community. And I've learned so much from the lived experience and expertise of our inclusive team at KU. And diverse teams make everything work better. But what not all of you may know is that I also have a disability identity that shapes my work and what I do. I have multiple chronic health conditions, and throughout my life, I've transitioned between highly visible disabilities and scooters and canes and chairs, and much less visible support needs. And as I think we've heard from the previous panel of lived experience and others, how people perceive you is definitely shaped by what they judge based on what they see. And I tell you to provide some context to my comments because ableism is so deeply rooted in our society, and how it presents is so shaped by our experiences and by the communities that we live in. For example, we know that physical accessibility remains a persistent and pervasive challenge, that the ADA and other laws were established to change and challenge, but we still have so much more work to do. We also know that it's not just about physical accessibility, it's about cognitive accessibility, and it's about changing the pervasive stereotypes and biases that pervade our lives and our employment, our education, our community participation options. It's the disability tax, as we sometimes call it, or the constant need to advocate for accessibility, to fight with health insurance companies, to wait excessively long periods of time for supports and services to live in your community, to fight for reasonable accommodations, and to have to prove worth over and over again in schools and in jobs and in the community. This deficit lens is still the primary way that society perceives disability, and having to navigate that ableism is something that the disability community has to do, and why building disability pride is so important, and why laws that continue to challenge this prejudice and discrimination are so critical. So laws like the ADA, as well as so many others, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, we've heard about Section 504, the Workforce Opportunity and Innovation Act, even international treaties like the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which sets forth fundamental freedoms and the right of people with disabilities. Although I'll note that the United States has still not ratified the CRPD. However, it is still creating an international expectation that people with disabilities are full participating members of their community, and it's the barriers that society creates that limit those opportunities, and it's challenging that around the world. So despite the ADA and other laws, as I've mentioned, recognizing that disability is a natural part of the human experience and in no way diminishes a person's right to fully participate in all aspects of society, we know the promise and the value that was established in the ADA, recognizing that people are frequently precluded from fully participating in society because of prejudice, antiquated attitudes, or the failure to remove societal and institutional barriers remains a pervasive problem. And that's where ongoing policy, advocacy, and disability pride and communicating that pride loudly and proudly is so important. So while we're here with celebrating our disability pride, while we're here really celebrating the ADA, today is the actual anniversary, and it's really great to be in a room doing this all together. We also need to recognize that there are ongoing threats and challenges that the disability community is experiencing. We currently face significant threats to many of these basic civil rights protections, given policies and rhetoric, including executive orders, including other bills that have passed. And being aware of the impacts of this on the disability community is critical to recognizing the impact of policy. We're also facing significant threats to fundamental services and supports that enable the full participation in all aspects of society that we're seeking. Medicaid long-term supports and services, and home and community-based services, but also education and special education, employment supports, healthcare, housing, and food supports. We know about the potential cuts that are coming. And again, without change, we have to think about the impacts that this could have on the disability community. We also just heard on our last panel from Darby about the impacts of cuts to disability research and training. For example, you may not all know that USEDS, like we have at KU, that helps us do work across the state, our funding has actually been cut in these proposals and will significantly impact. And it's not just USEDS, it's also protection and advocacy systems and other things available. So thinking about how policies can really shape the services and supports that are available is critical. So we must be steadfast in our advocacy for celebrating and protecting laws like the ADA. We also must be steadfast in our advocacy for budgets and funding that support the implementation and advancement of these laws and policies. In raising our voices, we can counter ableism and bias in society and in our communities. We can raise awareness of the impacts of these practices. Laws define and safeguard rights. Laws are foundational, but it is people that create equity by recognizing and actively countering biases and building a foundation where everyone is supported in their communities to be who they are and to thrive. So tell your stories to legislators, to friends and families, to the community, to reporters, to anyone who will listen, because your stories matter. Highlight the purpose of policy. Highlight how systems enable us to thrive. Highlight how it's the purpose of our community to work together to support everyone. We must raise our voices together, and as John Lewis, a supporter of the ADA and voting rights, said, speak up, speak out, get in the way, get in good trouble. So to close, I also want to say that it's critical right now, especially in Lawrence, to recognize that just as I shared, I have multiple identities, so do each of you in this room, and so does each and every member of the disability community. As Philip talked about, intersectionality amplifies the threats and barriers. Disability justice is intertwined with racial justice, with LGBTQ+ justice, with immigrant justice. We are in a time where threats and changes are being proposed that impact all members of our disability community. So recognizing and celebrating the humanity, fighting for rights, and elevating the contributions of all people with all of their identities is what can advance equity and create an inclusive and just society. So I look forward to getting into good trouble with all of you to advance this outcome.
Thank you. As I look down and see we're on time, I don't feel a great need to spend 15 minutes giving you the history of the ADA, but I will be glad to point out a few things that I think are important. In the late 80s, when the ADA was being shaped, and we had colleagues inside the U.S. government that were helping to make those arrangements, and in particular, Senator Dole being a leader in the Senate, and strength from the Kansas Association of Centers for Independent Living, which at the time was very forceful. We had probably 9 different independent living centers, each of which was working with their Congress people. At that time, Kansas had 5 representatives. We only have 4 now, and 2 senators. And I want to just name those people so that people could recall. Jim Slattery, Jan Myers from Kansas City. Jim was from the 2nd District, from, in particular, Topeka. Bob Whitaker from Southeast Kansas. Dan Glickman from Wichita. Pat Roberts from the big one out west that, by the way, has the long gerrymandering arm that comes in and chokes Lawrence. You might want to take a look at that. Plus, Senators Dole and Castlebaum all voted for the ADA. We had a strong Kansas, and I'm seeing this. Our Great Plains ADA Center is in Kansas, Iowa, Nebraska, and Missouri. So I'm seeing things that happen in 4 states. Plus, we started in 1997 what became the National ADA Symposium, which this year was in Atlanta, and next summer will be in Phoenix, Arizona. Those of you who might want to get very well educated on the Americans with Disabilities Act, that would be an important, in fact, starting right now to sign up and become a member of what has become the ADA Coordinator Certification Program that's run by the University of Missouri would be a smart thing to do, and then wrap that up at the end of that national symposium, where you would have a credential as a prospective person to work with a local government or a business as the go-to person understanding the ADA. And none of us know it all, but the idea is know what you need to know and know who you need to talk to when you don't know the answer, and that person also knows other people to talk to find out and get a consensus on some of the issues for which there is no bright line, but you can gain a common understanding of those things. So I guess what I'm urging is, and the words that came up today that struck me the strongest was voting. Voting. And voting means you need to understand what the people who are representing you are saying and doing, and they're going to be in town meetings, and you need to go to those and ask them the tough questions, because what gets hidden is nobody's there to ask them the tough questions and to hold their feet to the fire, so to speak. I'm not into burning people. I'm just saying they need to be aware of what is happening. We're sitting in one of the less than 10 states that does not have Medicaid expansion. That's going to hurt us in the future health-wise. I mean, I think rural hospitals are already strapped enough as it is. So thinking about those kinds of issues, I think I would just want to encourage, and I've known her since before she was a legislator and now our governor. She is an excellent governor. She's a leader in the Governors Association, and hopefully we will be able to have a race for governor that is balanced enough that both sides have a chance to say what they're for and what they're against, and then those of us who can help organize among our peers and families, that's not somebody you want to vote for if you want to have inclusion and accessibility. So I'm glad to answer any questions, but as far as I'm concerned, we've done a pretty good job of covering what the ADA is about and what it needs to be, do hopefully get us your name and contact information so that as things follow up from here, Congress is in recess now, but they will be back. I fear they will be back. And when they are, we need to be on top of things to keep them from doing the things that we know easily could be destructive of the progress that we've made on civil rights. And again, one of the tail ends of the ADA, among everything, having governments, having businesses be accessible, including people and so forth, is employment. And employment entails education. And education, when they're talking about destroying the U.S. Department of Education, I'm kind of going, do you know what's going to happen if education reverts to each of 50 states? And then we have no national standard, and an opportunity for some states to fall way behind. And if they're falling way behind in education, you can bet they're not leading in employment of people with disabilities. So I think those are key issues that we need to focus on. Hey, how you doing, Dolly? We'll do that. No, this is not how we do it. Great Plains ADA Center does not allow people talking without a microphone. This is Mike Donnelly, who has been everything, including the head of Voc Rehab in Kansas. He was at Three Rivers Independent Living Center. When I came to Independence, Inc., I drafted him to come over to Tilric to be the executive director because he was such a good presenter at the legislature of telling stories about his own experiences. Good to see you, Mike.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. You brought up Department of Education. I don't know how many people know that VR is actually funded.
Get your microphone closer to you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I don't know how many people know that VR is funded by Department of Education. And not only have they pretty much killed the Office of Civil Rights in education, but they probably also are going to take that money. And if states are left to fund that program, you can kiss it goodbye.
That's right.
It's a little bitty program inside the Department of Education compared to others. But how many people went to school with VR? How many people have a wheelchair or a van or a other piece of equipment that came from VR? And the independent living centers used to be funded directly through there. That's how they were established in 1978, way back when.
Right.
And that sort of stuff. So all of those attacks boil down to the least on the social ladder, and that's us. And we all pay for what everybody else gets. So there you go.
Thank you. Other comments? Oh, thank you, Barbara.
I serve in the legislature and have, thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara.
And for a long time I've served. But one of the reasons I really wanted to come today is because we have social services budget. And I have served on that since 1996. And I have stayed on it. And even though I'm the ranking on appropriations now, I still sit on social services budget because we have almost an $8 billion budget that we are appropriating. And any of you who have been there, you know that every year we do whatever is necessary. For instance, like brain injury right now, part of it was we are paying the people who do this a low wage hourly. And we had to do something, and we increased it. And we make sure, Boys and Girls Club, you say, how does that fit? Well, because that's after school, and they have students with disabilities as well. But when I look at everything else that you look at, and we say it is not good, I just want you to know that social services budget did not cut anyone. We increased as many as possible, and we will continue to do that because people realize they can come. We had a hearing twice. We had over 37 people at each one, and we heard every single one, and we didn't give them a time limit. We let them talk and tell us, teach us. And when somebody said, put yourself in that person's shape, their situation, what do you want to do? So even though it's not good, that is one committee that I can tell you continues to fund as much as we can. And I think our committee, even though they keep changing new people, there's some old people that stay there. And when part of that is to make them know what has happened and why we need those funds. Because when we don't fund some people, everyone else also suffers in many ways. So please think, when it's all else fails, social services budget is still consistently trying to do as much as we can to make sure that the needs are met. And I have enjoyed sitting here, not enjoying here the struggles, but to know that so many people really do care what everyone else does. Because when I don't care about you, and I don't care about you, you also won't care about me. And we don't have to be in the same boat, but we all have particular needs that we need help with. So it is a pleasure just to sit here. And he was recording last week at the Dole Institute of Politics, because I also worked there. And we discussed this today, because it wasn't that well publicized for all of us to know what was going on, but I was really glad that you were there on Tuesday.
Thank you. And in fact, that tonight, WIBW, CBS channel in Topeka, Callie Holthouse came to the Dole Institute and interviewed Audrey Coleman, who is the executive director. Barbara was there also during this time. There is going to be I think a teaser spot at 6 p.m., but there will be a report on the 35th anniversary of the ADA. I think that's channel 13 at 10 p.m. tonight. So, I thought it was a really excellent interview, and I know Audrey covered very well, knowing Senator Dole, what his inclinations were and so forth, and his support for the ADA and, and employment of people with disabilities, among other things. Okay? There is an item here about raffle. The raffle.
Yay. Okay. Oh, they're ready to be pulled. Talk about the prizes. You want to pull and read? It opens up.
Uh-oh.
I know. We've got some escapees.
I think our interpreters ought to be the ones to draw. What do you say? You
want to
pull the winners out of here. Come on. Yeah. There you go. Oh, take a turn. Take a turn. How many do we have? Probably 9, 8? Is that right? What do we
have 12 prizes.
12 prizes.
Yes.
All right, let's keep. You want to draw one? Oh, wait, don't be putting yours in here. Oh, no, I didn't see this. Okay, I can figure that out.
Can you hand me the books and the gift card?
Oh, Drew? All right, we'll take these up, and whoever's got the prizes, come right over here. Drew's got one, and you want to draw one?
This is $10 Downtown Lawrence gift card, Lorraine's book, and Sitting Pretty, courtesy of Tam.
Thank you. Eider? Is that right?
Does it have a number?
Oh, yeah,
It's like Aiden.
Aiden.
Aiden, and it's
Okay, Aiden. 448 058. 058. 448 058. How about 448 005?
oh, we didn't keep the numbers. Right.
All right.
This looks like a Rhonda. Oops, sorry.
Rhonda. Handley? Was that right? Rhonda? Are there Rhondas here? Any Rhonda? Help me, Rhonda. Val Renault.
Any vowels?
Val left. Okay, we'll keep this a reminder. You got to stick around. You know what I mean? All right. Paul Jefferson. Here's Paul. We've got books. We've got downtown.
This is a $10 Downtown Lawrence gift card.
Gift
Lorraine's
cards.
book, and then a copy of Sitting Pretty, donated by Tam.
Okay.
Nice. Good choice.
Daniel Brown. Daniel Brown.
Oh, yay.
All right. Pick one of those. There you go. Matt Mitchell. Matt is okay. Liz Long?
Lynn who?
Liz. I think it's Long. Oh, this is Matt. Okay. All right, Matt. You want more of
We
this?
have $10 Downtown Lawrence gift card. Yeah, right here. You are so welcome.
Okay, so this is Lorraine's book.
Yep, Lorraine's book, Sitting Pretty, which was donated by Tam, and then Downtown Lawrence gift cards.
Allison?
Nice.
Allison. All right. Tamara? Gift card? Gift card. All right, let's see. Cooper.
Cooper left.
Cooper Grant? Okay, no? Okay, how are we doing? Still several. Okay, these are Marge? Marge Baker?
Oh, okay. Marge?
Okay. Okay. Juan Brown. Juan Brown. Oh yeah, there's music happening. I didn't mean to cut that short. Yeah, listen to the music.
Which one is Juan?
Juan.
Is that Joan? That's you? Okay, perfect. We've got Lorraine's book, gift cards. Feel free to take whichever you like.
There you go. Okay. Felicia or Felicia? Okay. We have 3 and 3. Excuse me. 3 and 3, is that right? Okay. Karen Stone. Karen. A book or a coupon, either one.
I bet the coupon might be what she wants.
All right. Karen, okay. Help me. Is it Bonita?
Maybe, yeah.
Is it Bonita? I'm having trouble reading it.
I think she may have left. I feel like she was here.
Okay. Kelly Bates. Kelly Bates. There she comes. These are coupons, these are books.
Okay, I will get this book. Thank
All right,
you.
you bet. Brooke M. Brooke.
I'll have to get that one on Audible. I'll give this to my kid. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Karen Henry. Karen?
Karen? Well, you might be the winner of the remaining.
No, there's several more.
I don't know. I'm excited to figure it out. I've never omnied before.
All right.
Is that Lorraine? Maybe? Yeah.
Love.
Or
Can you?
Lorden?
Lorden? Lorden. I'm gonna go Isorda. Is Isorda Gonzalez? Ryan Henley. you go.
Thank you.
Maria Palladio. Maria. Okay, those. Okay, and then we may be down to, is this something?
Yes, those are the raffle tickets I made before I could have real ones.
Oh. Charlie Crabtree. Charlie Crabtree. Okay, so we need to save all these because they have emails and things on them.
You just put it back in there.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, and now I'm going to bring this mic back to other Ray, who's the AMI
Okay.
coordinator.
All right.
Do you mind if I... For folks who are still here, we have an AMI jam about to happen. AMI stands for Adaptive Use Musical Instrument. And it's set up here in the back corner. It's super cool. I'm going to bring this mic to you, Ray, so that you can tell people how it works.
All right. Okay, yeah, good afternoon, everybody. It's really an honor to be here at this celebration of the ADA and disability rights and disability justice, so I'll make it quick. Since 2011, up at KU, I've been involved in research with software called the Adaptive Use Musical Instrument. And it facilitates music making by people of all abilities. And it's been used particularly with children with developmental disabilities. So if you'd like to make music and see how the ALMI works, we'd love to have you join us. So we're in the back here. We have 4 ALMIs available, and you can come back here and give it a try, and I think you'll be amazed and delighted at how easy it is to make music with the adaptive use musical instrument. So yeah, that's all I've got, so come on back. Thank you. And we've got some great friends to help us get it going. So yeah.